Mr. Chair, we're now live.
Good evening. This is a special meeting of council for the Corporation of the Municipality of Central Elgin held Monday, June 3rd at 6 p.m. in the council chambers and via Zoom. Director of Infrastructure and Community Services, ICS 3424 Hill Street Cost Sharing. I'll pass this on to Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to run council through PowerPoint presentation here. Ms. Leach can get that up on the screen.
Just interrupt for a second. Does anybody have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll continue.
Am I on here?
I think we're having some technical difficulties here.
Are the virtual attendees able to see the slideshow on the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we'll get started here. So we're here tonight to talk about Hill Street servicing. The developer of 279 Hill Street is currently underway to develop a condo site at the west end of Hill Street. And they're getting underway with construction of the servicing, extending services west from High Street to the development at 279 Hill Street. As the developer gets underway with the construction of the servicing, the municipality has the opportunity to service the existing homes on Hill Street while sharing in restoration costs with the developer. So I want to go over 3 different items with council here tonight. The first, sanitary servicing. The second, storm sewer cost sharing, and 3, road restoration. Okay, so I believe it is the 3rd slide titled sanitary servicing. I have, for those who can see the slides, I have a cross-sectional picture showing what the sanitary servicing would look like. Here under the road, you can see there's an access manhole, and in the beige colored, there's pipe. That's a sanitary sewer, what I would refer to as the mainline sewer. To that mainline sewer, you can see is connected a sanitary sewer drain connection or a sanitary sewer lateral. That would be the drain pipe that connects the house to the sanitary sewer main line. What this project would do would be to make that connection of the sanitary service at the sewer main line and extend that towards the house and then cut and cap that at the property line. There would be 8 existing houses on Hill Street that would be serviced under this proposal. And each property would have an estimated cost of $13,400 to have that connection done to property line. Staff would suggest that this would be payable within 2 years of installation. Now, as far as connection, council could elect to not force people to connect with any certain period of time. And that connection from the property line to the house would be the responsibility of the homeowners at the time of their choosing, or when potentially when their septic system failed. And that cost would be borne by the homeowner as well. The next slide is just an overall top-down plan view of the sanitary services that would be installed. And this just outlines the residents who would be installed. There are 8, as I said, 8 houses that would be serviced, and those range from 264 Hill Street through to 276 Hill Street.
May I pause you for a moment there, Jack?
Okay, next slide.
Those of us that are online, we are not seeing the slides, only the cover right
Okay,
now.
the next slide shows a top view down map view of Beamish Street. So under this proposal, Beamish Street would not be serviced. Rather, we're only servicing Hill Street where the developer must install sanitary sewer already. However, what we would be proposing to do would be to drop a manhole in at the intersection of Hill Street and Beamish Street, as well as to extend a sanitary sewer approximately 20 meters north of the mainline sewer on Hill Street to provide a future connection for those residents on Beamish Street. That way, in the future, when they do go to extend sanitary sewer up Beamish Street, they don't have to excavate into the intersection. So by doing that, that would provide a benefit to those residents on Beamish Street. And that benefit would amount to approximately $625 per lot. Now, there are 14 lots on Beamish Street, which would see this benefit. 263 Hill would wish to be serviced off of Beamish Street as well. And staff would propose that the municipality service Beamish Park as well. Now, that $625 benefit that I suggested would be the benefit to the Beamish Street lots. That would be in the form of a deferred benefit. And when I say deferred, really that means it does provide those residents a benefit. However, they cannot see that benefit today. That would be a future benefit for them. And that $625 would be payable at the point in time in which a sewer is extended down Beamish Street. It wouldn't be payable, within a certain amount of time, all hinging on when Beamish Street gets developed. Next slide. Okay, so that covers the sanitary sewer aspects of this project. We'll move on now to storm sewer outlet cost sharing. So the developer is required to put in a new head wall structure at the outlet, as well as protect the slope with cable concrete matting and install a manhole that would connect the storm sewer coming from the new development to the existing storm sewer on Hill Street. So what this does is this provides a benefit to the municipality. It cleans up the outlet. It's proper engineering practice to combine storm sewer outlets into one single storm sewer outlet. This was directed to the developer by staff, and the developer has proposed a cost sharing arrangement for the storm sewer as a result of this. The cost sharing that staff would recommend would be 33% to be paid for through the municipality of Central Elgin, and the developer would pay 67% of the storm sewer outlet costs. Staff would suggest that this provides an excellent value to the municipality in that the municipality is only paying a third of the cost. The combined outlet head wall and the cable concrete matting will provide increased protection against erosion of the gully at the outlet. The Central Elgin cost of this would be $21,897.61. And staff would suggest that this could be paid for through the road resurfacing reserve. It would not be assessed to any landowners. Next slide. Okay, we'll move on now to road restoration. Obviously, with all this servicing taking place on Hill Street, the road has to be restored. Staff would recommend to council that Hill Street be restored to an urban cross-section with curb and gutter, sidewalk, and storm drainage on the curb line. This will provide a few improvements to the neighborhood. One, it's more aesthetically pleasing. Two, it improves drainage. It provides improved safety for pedestrians. It provides a barrier between a potential sidewalk and the traveled portion of the road, as well as just good for the overall structural adequacy of the road because it takes away water from the road surface quicker. The estimated cost to restore the road to an urban cross-section is $93,632, and staff would recommend that those funds be taken from the road resurfacing reserve again. Next slide. Without the additional funding, the road returns to a rural cross-section as it is now, without curb and gutter and without sidewalks. Similar to what the street looks like right now. Going back about 4 years, the municipality, in cooperation with the developer of Sunset Bluffs, serviced Larry Street, Hill Street, and High Street. High Street and Hill Street were serviced or were restored with curb and gutter and sidewalk. Larry Street was not restored to a rural cross section. Now, the picture here kind of outlines some of the drainage issues that we had with Larry Street. For example, you can see there are some minor drainage issues at the side of the road. It does not provide the barrier between the road surface and the boulevard. So you have cars and other equipment parking off the side of the road onto the boulevards, which creates rutting and such. So as I said, if council chooses to not move forward with the funding for an urban cross-section, the road will be restored to a rural cross-section. Next slide. So this is the last slide. Just want to go over some of the financial impacts of this proposal. The sanitary servicing costs to Hill Street will be covered by the residents and would be payable to the municipality within 2 years. The sanitary sewer deferred benefit costs to those lots on Beamish Street would be carried by Central Elgin until a future sewer is installed on Beamish. Storm sewer cost sharing would equal $21,897.61 to be borrowed from the road resurfacing reserve. Road restoration costs to go to upgrade to an urban cross section would be in the amount of $93,632 taken from the road resurfacing reserve. The total ask out of the road resurfacing reserve would be $115,529.61, of which we currently have over $500,000 in that road resurfacing reserve. So we would be left with a little over $400,000 after this project. And finally, there would be no budget impacts to any of the proposed works here today. So that is the slideshow here. Happy to answer any questions from council.
I'll open the questions up to council. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brooks? Councilor Graham?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Jeff, when we're putting that money back into the road resurfacing reserve, where does that money come from?
The road resurfacing reserve comes from unspent capital funds that we budget each year for the road resurfacing budget line in the capital program. So that is a funding envelope that's recommended through our asset management plans. And what it does is it provides an overall funding envelope for hot mix paving, gravel resurfacing, crack sealing, and tar and chip roads. So if, let's say we put away or we budget $1.5 million in say 2022, and we only spent 1.2 million, then we put that 300,000 in that road resurfacing reserve for use at a later date. So this project here in the upgrade to the urban cross section generally fits the use of those funds in the road resurfacing reserve.
I just want to clarify that it was asked that we would separate the first 4 items of this motion and deal with the last item, which would be the 5th item, separately. Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Graham.
So just to follow up through you, Deputy Mayor. So ultimately, where does the money come from that goes back into this reserve?
The money wouldn't go back into the reserve. We wouldn't repay it back into the reserve as a result of drawing this money out. So this reserve would remain open in the event that we don't spend our full budget under that road resurfacing capital item. So in 2025, we may have $1.6 million for the road resurfacing budget. We may spend 1.8, draw 200,000 out of that reserve, draw that reserve down. However, in 2026, we may budget 1.65, only spend 1.3, and then budget and carry those funds over, those remaining funds over into that road resurfacing reserve. So it's just there to support road resurfacing. If we spend all that money from road resurfacing in a year, then nothing goes to the reserve. If we don't spend it all, some of that money goes into the road resurfacing reserve, if you follow me.
Thank you, Jeff. Ms. Hurd?
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Brooks, I believe, if I can read your mind, Councillor Graham, Councillor Graham's asking whether it's funded through taxes or development charges or fees.
Sorry, that budget is typically paid for through funding comes from gas tax is one source of funding, and typically taxes.
Are there any other questions? I have one. Is it possible that the 13,400 not be something that's payable in 2 years and maybe is something that gets extended and is payable when somebody needs to hook up to that? Mr. Brooks?
It's certainly possible. That's council's prerogative when they want to collect that money. However, a funding source would need to be identified by council in order to hold those funds.
Thank you. So there'd be a financial impact on that, one way or another. We just have to figure out how to clarify that.
That's correct. Just for, we have, or the municipality has in the past, for example, serviced lots with services and not required those lots to either connect or to pay for the connection fee that is applicable to those lots. I'll give you an example on Sunset Drive. Back, I want to say in around 2004 to 2006, water main was installed up Sunset Drive, and copper services were run from that water main to the property line. Those residents weren't asked to connect at that time, nor were they asked to pay for that connection. The municipality has already started to replace some of those services that haven't been paid for even once. So we've basically purchased 2 sets of services and we still have yet to collect any money. So it's a best practice when you're installing some of these user fee services to collect those connection fees within a certain amount of time, so that you're not necessarily, for example, funding it out of the existing water rates reserve or wastewater rates reserve.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question from Councillor Connors online.
Go ahead, Councillor Connors.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Brooks. So Jeff, what is
I'm sorry, Councillor Connors, I think you're on mute.
I'm on mute.
I can hear him.
Is that any better, Delaney?
I can hear you.
Okay. How's that, Delaney?
Is that a technical issue?
Confirming that other virtual attendees can hear Councillor Connors. I apologize. We're having some technical difficulties in the chamber this evening. Just one moment. I will try and reconnect the audio.
Okay.
My apologies, Councillor Connors. Could you try again?
Can you hear me now, Delaney? Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, Dave.
I know, but we can hear each other, but I don't think council can
Oh,
hear.
I'm sorry. Apologies.
Are we okay to go to Councillor Watson's question while we fix the audio? Delaney?
Sure. Yes, I will keep trying to fix the audio. My apologies.
Councillor Watson?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Brooks. I'll have probably a couple questions here. Mr. Brooks, is there any way to get any grants explored or to help out with this development at all?
I'm not aware of any grants that would support this type of project that are out currently or have been out anytime recently.
And then just to add to that, like I just know we've had other communities that have had some grants or whatever, so I didn't know. But then when other areas have had to pay for hookups and all that, did they get longer than the 2 years? Like, can we debenture it a little bit longer for the residents there that want to hook up? Oh, sorry.
There are some other areas that were serviced that were required to connect. The Eastwood area was required to connect, and I think it was somewhere between a year or two, and they were forced to, in addition to pay for the service, make the physical connection to the service as well, which would be beyond the scope of what we'd be asking here. Southdale Line residents were required to pay the connection fee, which was just the portion from the main line to the property line, but weren't forced to connect right away. So similar to what we would be asking here. And I believe the Hill High Street residents were required to pay within a certain amount of time. Now, I don't recall whether or not they were required to connect or not, but they were required to at least pay that connection fee within a year or two.
Mr. Brooks, through the property taxes, could that be spread out over 10 years? Is that something we could facilitate?
There have been programs in the past, and I'll point to Eastwood, the Eastwood area, where people took advantage of a 10-year debenture that was offered by the municipality. Municipal staff would be willing to work with individuals to work out some kind of a payment plan potentially, or a debenture to, ease that burden on those residents.
Through the chair to members of council and Mr. Brooks, just to be clear, the recommendation does not include anything to say that the homeowners must pay for the installation of the pipe within 2 years. So is it the recommendation? I just want to make sure council understands what they're voting on. And so is it the recommendation that once the pipe is installed, that the requirement be paid, that 13,400 be paid within 2 years?
That's correct. At the completion of this project, it would be recommended that residents pay that 13,400 within 2 years of the installation date of the pipe that we're talking about here today.
Sorry, through the chair. So the recommendation, I'll have to change the wording because it wasn't worded such that way, and council can vote on it accordingly.
Thank you. Do we have Councillor Connors online now to ask his question?
I don't know, can you
Chair, I
hear
have
me
a
now, Mr.
question
Chair?
in the chat from Councillor Connors. He would like to confirm the budget for road restoration for this year, and that this $115,000 will not affect any of the other projects.
Mr. Brooks?
The road resurfacing capital item this year was in the neighborhood of $1.6 million. However, we're not proposing that line item would fund this project. Rather, we would pull the funds from the road resurfacing reserve to fund this project.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Mr. Chair, Mayor Sloan has commented, if we didn't put the new sewer in with 13,000 per 8 houses, there would be no cost for the municipality. What is the cost of the ratepayers at 8 houses?
Mr. Brooks?
I don't have a cost worked out. That would vary from homeowner to homeowner. However, what would be required from the homeowner if their septic system failed and they needed to gain access to the sanitary sewer, they would have to hire a contractor to excavate the road, dig down to the sewer, cut the sewer, cut in a T, and then run the sanitary drain up to their property line on their own. So they'd be 100% responsible for all the excavation costs, all the restoration costs, including asphalt to repair the road. Plus we'd have 8 patches at some point in time out on Hill Street. So while it's 13,400 now, I would highly suspect that it would be much more than that to service it on their own without any shared costs.
From Mayor Sloan, Mr. Chair, a follow-up. Why does the municipality not just add the T, or is that what is being done for the 13,000 roughly per house?
The municipality could install Ts on the mainline sewer. That would be much cheaper. However, the residents would still be required to excavate down into the road, open the road up, and still have 100% of those restoration costs, including the hot mix asphalt, which would have to be put back on the road. They'd be responsible for traffic control, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the cost would be much more in the event that they had to undertake the work on their own.
Councillor Watson, you had a question?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I'm not really down from Port Stanley there, but these 8 residents, what do they want? Have we had any feedback from them? Oh, okay. Well, some are Beamish and some are Hill Street, right?
Mr. Brooks?
I was working hard last week to try and get a hold of as many of the residents as I could. There are 8 affected properties here which would be provided a service. I was able to get through 5 of the 8 of them, and all 5 were interested in receiving a service. There was no one that said, no, we absolutely do not want a service installed.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any further questions?
Mr. Chair, a further question from Councillor Connors. He notes, plus our cost for these items is 115,000 and our potential income is 173,000, which is a total of 8 lots using 13.4 plus 8,246.
I don't believe those costs go together. One is wastewater and the other one is roads. Am I correct, Mr. Brooks?
The cost is 13,400 for each of the 8 lots, which would be serviced, which I think equals $117,200 in sanitary sewer costs, and that would be collected from those residents. The road costs are over and above that. That gets into the 93,000 for the upgrade to the urban cross section, and there was 21,000 that was required for cost sharing of the storm sewer outlet.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any further questions? Councillor Bachman.
Once again, I'm just trying to put everything into context. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So with this, Mr. Brooks, in context, we have the money, it's in reserve. The money that we do have came from projects over the last few years that was just left over because we saved money on those projects. So this is no tax increase to anybody in Central Elgin except for the affected landowner. But as far as the tax base goes, this does not affect our budget. It comes out of reserve. That was money saved from previous projects. And we're going to do it. We're going to do it right once. We're not going to have to go back and redig it and have it done in the future at an exorbitant cost because we're redoing a road twice and having to rip things up twice. So I see this as a prudent use of money for our taxpayers.
Thank you, Councillor Bachman. Councillor Graham.
Just in follow-up to Councillor Bachman's, anything that comes out of the reserves has a tax impact, whether it's this year or next year, other than development charges and fees. It has to come from taxes. It's the only place we get our money.
If there's no further questions, do we have a mover and a seconder for this? Are we for the first 4? Councillor Bachman, Councillor Watson. I just have one clarification. We are going to change the one part where it says 2 years. Thank you.
So moved by Councillor Bachman, second by Councillor Watson, that report ICS 3424 regarding Hill Street servicing be received for information, that wastewater servicing be approved for 8 existing lots on Hill Street adjacent to the sanitary sewer being installed by 100048933 Ontario Inc., 279 Hill Street, at an estimated cost of $13,400 per connection to be paid by the homeowner within 2 years of installation. That 16 lots to be serviced in the future off of Beamish Street be assessed for $625, a deferred benefit charge payable at a future date when Beamish Street has serviced with a sanitary service. And that cost sharing between Central Elgin and 10004893393 Ontario Inc. be approved in the amount of $21,897.61 to be funded from the Road Resurfacing Reserve.
Just for clarification, we're leaving in the 2 years for the payment? Okay, I thought we were kind of heading in that direction. That we were going to make an amendment on that 2 years. Sorry.
Sorry, through you, it's staff recommendation of this recommendation. If council chooses to change that, to remove the 2 years, and that would require an amendment.
What does council wish? Mr. Brooks?
For what it's worth, just add to the 2-year clause, by not requiring residents to pay within 2 years, it could have bigger impacts to future negotiations on a much larger scale for servicing. If we're not asking residents here not to pay within 2 years, we might get into a situation on a far larger project where a lot more houses are required to connect. And if we're not asking these people to connect within 2 years, it could impact those, a much larger project, not too far down the road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Leach, do you want to call the vote?
Counselor Graham,
Yes.
Counselor Halpin. Counselor Halpin has voted yes. Counselor Watson,
Yes.
Counselor Connors. Counselor Connors has voted yes. Counselor Bachman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noble,
Yes.
Mayor Sloan. That's carried. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a mover and a seconder for the last paragraph of CIS or ICS 3424? Counselor Watson will move it. Seconder? Counselor Bachman?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Watson, seconded by Counselor Bachman, that staff be directed to have the section of Hill Street between 279 Hill Street and High Street converted to an urban cross section to be funded through the Road Resurfacing Reserve in the amount of $93,632. Counselor Graham,
No.
Counselor Halpin. Counselor Halpin has voted yes. Counselor Watson,
Yes.
Counselor Connors. Counselor Connors has voted yes. Counselor Bachman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noble,
Yes.
Mayor Sloan. Mayor Sloan has voted no. That has carried. Thank you.
Okay. Confirming bylaws, bylaw 2910. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Counselor Bachman, Counselor Watson,
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the motion reads, moved by Counselor Bogman, seconded by Counselor Watson, that bylaw 2910 be read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Call the vote.
Counselor Graham,
Yes.
Counselor Halpin. Counselor Halpin has voted yes. Counselor Watson,
Yes.
Counselor Connors has voted yes. Counselor Bachman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noble,
Yes.
Mayor Sloan. Mayor Sloan has voted yes. That's carried. Thank you.
Can I get a motion, the adjournment motion? Mover and a seconder? Counselor Watson, Counselor Bachman? Call the vote.
Counselor Graham,
Yes.
Counselor Halpin. Counselor Halpin has voted yes. Counselor Watson,
Yes.
Counselor Connors has voted yes. Counselor Bogman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noble,
Yes.
Mayor Sloan has voted yes. That's carried. Thank you.
Meeting's closed. Thank